You know, I didn't always have this deeply rooted hatred. I was born into this world filled with love, purity, and desire like many of you, but I was stripped of all of that when I got my first job at Subway. Now, for some context, growing up I really enjoyed subs, whether it be from Jimmy John's, Herbert's and Gerbert's, and honestly even Domino has some pretty decent subs. But one place in particular that was always nice to go to because of the wide selection, and mostly because of their cheaper price that they offered, was Subway. Now, my first job ended up being at Subway around the time when I was 14, which, by the way, Subway usually doesn't hire until you are 16, and that's in most states. But for some reason, the manager decided to hire me anyway, even though I wasn't of age. And honestly, I wasn't going to question it. I mean, how could I? I applied and got exactly what I wanted, the job. Anyhow, I continued to work 6-hour shifts every day after school, and I had the weekends off. Things were great for the first few months, but then the owner, who I'll be referring to as John from now on, he fired our main manager and promoted this lady, who I'll be referring to as Becky. While Becky was a tolerable coworker, her as my manager was fucking awful. Throughout the first 3 months that I worked at Subway, Becky had missed about a month's worth of work due to calling in and or just not showing up at all. Now, I didn't miss any shifts personally for my first few months, and I didn't start to call in till I started getting behind in school. And the amount of times that Becky would report me to John for quote unquote not showing up, even though I'd give her a call the day before and explain the situation, and she didn't seem to have a problem with it then on the phone, but I mean, anything to make herself look better. But that's not even the start of it. That's just a small chip of annoyance in this castle of horseshit. A few days after John fires our old manager, which was still undisclosed information for God knows what reason, he hires his mother-in-law, who I'll be calling Jenna from now on. He hired her as an assistant manager. Now, you might be wondering why that's so bad. To which I would like to inform you that in the very few human interactions I had with John, he had told me that Jenna was his father's ex, and that his dad had in fact remarried 2 times since he had been with Jenna. And by the time I had found this out, Jenna had already been working with us for at least 4 months, and I wouldn't have found it weird if John, this 45-year-old man, wasn't referring to this 65-year-old woman that his dad was married to over 30 years ago as his mom. He had her name as his mother in his phone type shit. It was just weird. On top of all of that, she would do the most absurd shit and he would just let her get away with it because she was his mother. So I get that it's not uncommon to ask for assistance from coworkers, but Jenna would pretty much just throw you her whole work shift at you and then take all the credit for doing it. And by you, I mean she would give me all of her work, from her opening shifts to stock order sheets. And the main reason I ended up taking most of her opening shifts was because Subway wasn't her main job, technically. She also had a nanny job she did. And so she would miss shifts often, and I would always take them. But one day that we had swapped shifts, I took her opening shift and she took my closing shift. And about 2-ish hours before I was to clock out, I get a call from Jenny telling me that she wasn't going to make it today and that Becky or I have to take her shift. But Becky already called in that day, so it was literally just me there. I called John to let him know that I absolutely could not stay and that he would need to come close the store down because I had lived an hour away from where I worked at the time, and plus I couldn't drive myself home because, well, I'm fucking 14. What am I supposed to do? To which he says he's out of town, but if I can manage to stay, he said he would give me 1.5 pay if I could manage to stay until at least 8. And I mean, I wasn't happy about it, but I ended up calling my parents and asked them if it was okay, and they weren't happy about it either, but I offered to pay them gas money in return, so it ended up all working out. And fast forward a few hours, it's about 5 o'clock now, which is when I was supposed to clock out originally, when all of a sudden Jenna walks in, and she's like, oh, you can go home once you finish those dishes. To which I looked at her like, the fuck? I was like, no, 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 no. You can go home. But then she's like, oh no, I already clocked you out. And the way the system was set up, once you clock out, you can't clock back in. And because I wasn't technically scheduled anymore for that day, I couldn't clock back in. And honestly, it was just a stab to the chest at this point because not only did I have to still pay my parents gas money, but I did end up getting those extra hours. And I'm sitting here realizing this as she's telling me that I need to leave after I finish these dishes because she's clocked me out. So I was pissed, rightfully so, and so I called her a snobby, inconsiderate bitch. And in direct response, I was met with a slap to the face. So I threw my hat on the ground, took my apron off, and I said I fucking quit, walked out. The next day I didn't show up for my shift, and John ended up calling me to ask more about the situation. He said he saw from the camera, but there's no audio, so he has no idea what was said. And I told him my side of the story, and he asked if I would come in tomorrow to speak with him. While I was hesitant at first, I did end up going in. He basically just apologized and just asked what I was going to be doing legality-wise. And I told him I wasn't going to be pressing charges because I don't want to deal with the police. I never really want to. And so he offered me my own job back, promised that I wouldn't be working with her anymore. Along with this offer also came unlimited cookies for a full year, a full foot long with my free meal for the day instead of the usual 6 inch, and a dollar raise. Now, to the average ear, this probably sounds like a bunch of bullshit, just a quick payoff to keep my mouth shut. But seeing as I was only 15 and most places wouldn't hire me, I took the deal. But I didn't come back the same employee. I ended up pretty much going through my villain arc and I returned a fucking menace to the Subway company. At first, I would just give cookies away. Like, I remember there was a time a little kid came through the line, and the second he got in line, he was asking his mother for cookies. And she just kept saying no, and that he should be glad that they were even getting Subway. And so I ended up giving them a few free cookies. But after a while, this wasn't enough for me. I eventually began randomly giving people my employee discount, or flat out or even just giving away several meals for free. Saying some shit like, oh, congratulations, you're a thousandth customer of the day, like, enjoy your free meal on the house. Or some fucking stupid shit, I don't know. Plus, my friends would come in, and I'd never charge them for the meals. I was really on my fuck Subway shit. And after being there for about a year, I was now almost 16, and to be real with you, I was so fucking fed up with Subway. Most days, I don't even know why I continued to show up. Every day began to feel like I was doing mental hurdles because I was still doing my manager's job for her. I'd been assaulted on the job, and all I got for it was some free fucking cookies. And so I took myself to John, and I told him that I'm either getting a raise or I'm putting in my 2 weeks.
And he basically just laughed at me and said I for sure wasn't getting another raise. So I didn't even give him my 2 weeks and I ended up just leaving.
So yeah, moral of the story, stand up for yourself, I guess. Don't take no shit. But yeah, that's really about it. See ya.